Welcome back to Jesus Talks 365. It's been a while.
It has been a minute.
It's been too long. Trey has some news. Pios are flying high, baby.
3-0. Opening weekend sweep in Atlanta. You know, Pios they're doing Pio things.
Why do y'all call it the Pios again, not the Pioneers?
Pios is just short for Pioneers, even though our mascot's a bat.
Yeah, but I feel like Pios gives like a bat vibe, but Pioneers doesn't. You know what I mean?
You're asking the wrong person.
All right, so that's the intro. Thank you all for tuning in. By the way, today's a very important topic, so please listen today. Or we're planning on it to be. Jesus tells us otherwise. It's otherwise, but our human-made plan is it to be an important topic. All right, so today we're getting into the transition period between living life in sin and living life of the flesh. When you truly accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior and you're trying to transition to that, trying to live your life for Jesus, what's that like? I want to talk from our experience today. Unless you want to start, I'll go first.
Go ahead.
All right, so transitioning from my life of, I don't want to say lukewarm because I feel like I was kind of saved, but I wasn't fully bought in. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It was difficult. Especially when I started drifting off from Christ. If you've watched the first episode, I kind of shared my testimony or know me personally. Couple months where I really was distracted from Christ. And even then, when I was getting back on track, I still had a couple distractions. But my eyes got drifted. You know, like they say, when you're walking to the Lord, when you're trying to walk and follow Christ, you keep your eyes on Christ and everything falls into place. And the devil's number one distraction is just to slowly let us drift off the path, slowly distract us, and that's what he did to me. And so by that, I was living that life. I was slowly falling off with my faith and growing farther from God. Again, not because God was coming farther from me, it's because I was walking away. Without even knowing, I was just slowly inching farther and farther away. And then God slapped me in the face.
Faith? Okay, Mike Tyson.
Wow. I really want to cut that. It's the Invisalign. I got Invisalign. It's not in right now, so I can't make that excuse. But it's adjusting. It's adjusting. God smacked me in the face. God smacked me in the face, and it got my attention, and it made me realize what I needed to strive for. And it was great. That was my starting point in giving it all to Christ, but it was hard because I drifted, and I'm at this point where my mind doesn't think like Christ wants me to think. I have a knowledge of Christ. I am starting to accept Christ and try to pursue Christ, which is a phenomenal thing, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, my mind wasn't in the space to truly be able to be dedicated. I knew what I wanted to do, but I wasn't fully, I wouldn't say bought in, but I wasn't there yet because it takes time. And so the next couple months, I continued to pursue Christ in his nature, but at the same time, I was engaging in a lot of the sin I needed to get rid of. Which I think I was taking steps in the right direction mentally and faithfully wise, but my actions weren't following along as well. In some areas it was, but in a lot of areas it really wasn't. And this goes on for a couple months going into college, and then I pick up the Bible and actually start diving into the Bible, which for the first time, which for me, I was never told to read the Bible, so I really do. If anyone is out there listening to this, if you're not reading the Bible, it's hard to grow your faith. I wish I was told that sooner, but I always thought I could just get by with doing a devotion every now and then maybe, but I was never in the Word. Being in the Word is the strongest thing you can do. But I get in the Word, it starts growing, and I start changing, and the Spirit starts working in me, and I transition from flesh to spirit. But saying that, we want to talk about today is how difficult that can be. So I don't want you to expect it to be easy. If you're thinking about giving your life to Christ, you have to realize that Jesus, when he came to earth, Jesus was divisive. Jesus, he didn't come to warm your hearts. Don't get me wrong, Jesus is full of mercy and love, and that's fully his characteristic. But in a cultural context, and in the context of the world that we live in today, Jesus can be divisive. Am I saying that word right?
I mean, I feel like you are. If not, I mean, it is what it is.
Y'all know what I'm saying. So Jesus is divisive. And the thing is that I feel like a lot of us want to do is we want to find Jesus and start living like Jesus, but we don't want Jesus to flip us upside down. And that's the thing, is Jesus is going to flip you upside down. I can tell you right now that, like, now one of my prayers is that, like, now I've grown stronger in my faith is, God, I want you to literally if you have to flip my life around, flip it around, turn me the opposite direction. Like, I don't care. You're going to have to flip my heart upside down, my life upside down, everything. I need you to wreck my life over, because that's when Jesus does that. That's honestly, that's the times where I'm like, I love, like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You see the great and the goodness of the Lord. But I didn't want that at first. I wanted to live my life and enjoy the things my flesh loved, but pursue Christ in a whole new way, which you can't. Like, that's two separate directions. You're going to choose a path at one point. But I want to talk about how difficult it is. And first of all, feel free to jump in.
I got you. I was just letting you cook for a little bit.
Well, I was just trying to tell my story. I got kind of distracted. But we want to talk about how difficult that is, because it is not an easy thing to do by any standards, and I'm sure you've experienced a similar thing.
Absolutely. Kind of similar to Hayden. You know, I spent a long time where I was progressively growing in my faith, but at the same time, you know, I was doing things, but I wasn't really doing enough. Kind of like what Hayden was saying, you know, with the devotions and whatnot.
I would say our minds weren't in the wrong place. We weren't willing to give up what our sin had hold on us.
Yes. Because, you know, it's great to do devotions, but at the same time, there's so much more power when you start to get into the Word.
Oh, my Lord.
Like, I feel like, honestly, that's been the biggest thing that's changed me, even over, like, the past 2-3 months. Because, I mean, I remember I got to college, and, you know, college is it's full of distractions, and you never really know what's going to happen or what you're going to get into. So I remember just heading into college, and yeah, I had started to establish myself in my faith a little bit, but at the same time, I still wasn't all the way in like how I thought I was.
Same way.
Because I was like, yeah, like I trust God and I know He has a plan for me, but at the same time, I still kind of want to do my own thing. And you know, if this XYZ is put in front of me, I don't know if I'm going to say no to it, even though knowing God wouldn't like it. And
you just dropped the bar. I don't think you realize, because that's so true. Like, when we're living for Christ, when we take ourselves out of situations, we sit there and we're still like, if that was in front of me.
Like, it's hard.
I'm entertaining it.
It's hard, whether it be, you know, going to that party or talking to that girl or whatever. Like, you know, those distractions, don't get me wrong, they're not put there on accident. Like, they are trying to get you to,
the devil's trying to influence
Yes, he's trying to tempt you. Say, hey, you know, He's going to forgive you anyways. I mean, why not go do it? Just do it this one time, and you know.
Or the get right with God after.
Yeah. Like,
you got time.
Yeah. Like, you know, you're not going anywhere anytime soon. You know, why not just go ahead and just do this thing, and then you can say sorry after, and it'll all be okay. And for a while, you know, I feel like that's kind of how I lived my life. I was again, like, I knew God, and I was trying to get to know Him, and to an extent that's true. And you know, I wasn't perfect, but at the same time, I wasn't fully in. You know, I was trying to serve God, but I was still serving the flesh at the same time.
Full passion, no discipline.
Essentially, yes.
In a lot of ways. The same thing for me. I'm saying.
There's a verse, but it says something about, like, you can't serve two masters.
Oh, it's a Matthew. Don't pull the Bible out.
Because I feel like I've seen that verse so many times in the past 2 weeks. But I feel like that's kind of where not only I was at, but I'm sure there's a lot of y'all out there that are in the same kind of situation, you know? Like, you want to get to know God and continue to grow with Him.
I found it.
But at the same time, it's so hard to say no to all this stuff going on. And Hayden's going to say the verse real quick.
It's not easy. That's what we're trying to say. That's what we're trying to talk about today. But in Matthew 6:24, it says, "No one can serve two masters. Either you'll hate one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to the one and despise the other." And right here it's saying you cannot serve both God and money. And by money, in my opinion, like this, he is talking about money specifically, but this applies to everything. You cannot serve both you and God. That you can't strive after personal satisfaction and the Lord. That's not how it works. And that reminds me of Matthew 10:38-39. "Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it. Whoever loses their life for my sake will find it." You have to make a decision. You can't serve God and serve yourself.
You can't hold that cross sometimes and then put it down and then try to pick it up again. Because when you put that cross down, when you put it down, you're restarting. You know, like you're taking. Yeah, you might have taken one step forward, but as soon as you put that cross down, you take 2 steps back.
Mm-hmm. Because if you live life based on selfish desires, you will lose your relationship with Christ. You're losing it. And there's, again, we've talked about it. There's no putting your faith on hold. There's no saying, I'll be right back. No, you're falling out of it. If you live for Christ, you gain Christ.
And that's where that discipline comes in that we kind of mentioned earlier. Because, again, it is hard to say no to the world.
And as close, just interject, when you closer you get to God, the more He'll help you out, the more you'll learn to live by the Spirit. But that first phase where you're transitioning from living in flesh to living in the Spirit, it takes discipline.
And if you're not all the way in, you won't succeed in it. You won't. Because, you know, it's truly it takes a lot of mental toughness. I'm not going to lie to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this semester especially, me personally, you know, I finally made that decision to where, okay, I'm all the way
Finally
in.
bought in.
Yes. And it's hard. It is. Because, you know, people are like, hey, like, you want to come out Thursday, come out Saturday, or, hey, like, what are you doing tonight?
Especially
do this,
here. Like, there's nothing really to do outside, go to the bar.
Yes, because, like, if you don't go, well, don't go to we're not going to the bars. We're not 21.
No, I'm saying, like, that's what those environments is what that's here.
But, yeah, they'll be like, okay, well, you know, if you don't go to the bar, or if you don't go party, or you don't go hang out with a girl, you know, I mean, it's hard because there's not really a lot else to do. But in that,
I want to change that. Like, I think that's one of my goals. I want to change that.
It's so annoying. Because, like, there's been times where I've been like, Hayden, bro, like, what are you doing? Like,
I'm late in my room.
Yes, like
going to bed at 9:30 on Saturday.
People keep asking me to do this. Like, Hayden, like, we need to do something. So, like, because I don't need to go out. But, like, you know, I feel like it just, like, that discipline, once you fully buy into that discipline, the rewards of it are just astronomical.
And I want you guys to realize this takes time. For us, it's spent 19 years building this life up. It's not going to snap in a day. Yes. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of progressive effort and work, and you're not going to be perfect in the process, but it's kind of what your intention is. Yes. Is your intention to live for Christ or for yourself?
And God knows the intentions of your heart. Because
I want you to, yes, He does, and that's what He's judging you based off. He's not judging you based off your performance because it's never going to be perfect. Mm-hmm. But I want you to look at, biblically speaking, our relationship with Christ is similar to the relational aspect of a marriage. The relationship is like a give and take in a way. Mm-hmm. Is when you get married, you commit yourself to that woman and you stop looking at other women. That's marriage, right? You committed yourself to one person for the rest of your life. That's my wife. That's who I'm going to live for, die for. That's who I'm going to be with till death do us part, right?
Right.
So you have to give up the ability to look at every woman in a new aspect, in a new way. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like when you're single, you look at every girl as a potential, as a possibility, whatever.
Like, man, she's bad, or I wonder what her name is. You know, it's easy.
Right.
But
once you get into that relationship, it changes. You have to give it up if you want that relationship to thrive.
Yes, and it's not even just physically, but mentally too, because it talks.
Don't even get me started on that.
Yeah, it talks about that in the Bible. Like you had, like even just looking at other women in like a
lustful aspect,
in a lustful way, it's a no. It's a major.
It's because I'm telling you right now, from personal experience speaking, I can tell you that thoughts can manifest into actions, and you entertaining thoughts is going to accidentally entertain an action eventually. Maybe not accidentally, but do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. When you entertain thoughts, are going to entertain action. It's the same way in your life with Christ. The more you start to entertain the sin, the more it's going to start turning into actions. But when you want to enter into a relationship with Christ, you have to give up the entertainment of all these other worldly things if you want that relationship to thrive. If you're okay with knowing Christ but not knowing Christ, go ahead. Go entertain all the sin you want to entertain, but guess what? Salvation is what you're not really aiming for. You want God's blessings, but you don't want God. And that's not going to do anything for you. Mm-hmm. That's like saying you want a husband, but you want to go cheat on him, or you want a wife and you want to go cheat on him with all these other people. That relationship's not going to thrive. And it's so key. Oh, you something to say?
No. I was processing. I was trying to load. Like in my
all right, he gave me a little smirk.
I was just letting you go.
What I'm trying to say is, it's hard and it's not easy. But you have to realize who you're living for. When you stop living for yourself, when you're living for yourself, you're living off your own self-desires, you're letting yourself entertaining every thought. You're going off feelings and emotions, which we've got to talk about that at one point, is that life isn't about feelings and emotions, because your feelings and emotions are going to tell you the wrong thing. They're going to tell you to live.
They'll lead to your downfall, honestly.
Oh, and it's completely one of the reasons why society today is how it is because everyone acts based off emotions. Lack of truth, in my opinion. God gave us a moral code, moral standard. He gave us the truth. We go based on what our emotions think are truth. And if that's true, then literally anything's true, and that's not true.
Right. Right. And there's studies that, this is a little bit off topic, but not really. But, like, going off of that, like, you know, you can see something. Like, take God, for example. God is real. There is no, like, some people may have doubt about it. But in my mind, there's
not
no
in my
doubt.
mind.
Not in
I
my
know.
Mind. Well, yeah.
But no, I know what you're saying. Like, I know.
Like, God is real. He is. But there are people who will see God's work and see how he's blessed them and other people, and they'll know, like, that can't be anything but God. But they'll still convince themselves that I don't need to live for him. And we talked about this in philosophy class. It is extremely dangerous, though. But, like, it's real, though. The human mind.
It doesn't make sense sometimes.
Like, you can convince yourself that reality is not reality. Like, it happens. And again, back to that discipline to where, like, you can't listen to your mind sometimes. Your mind, your heart, whatever. You know, you just have to listen.
Feelings or emotions. Yes. You have to have a truth. You have to stick by that truth.
You have to let the Spirit guide you. And again, going back off of the discipline, whatnot, and how you have to be fully committed, you can't do that without being in that Bible. You can't.
Right.
Like, you might think you can, or you might think you have it figured out, but I promise you that this book, there's something different about that book.
It's
like
true.
Who you are now and who you will be once you start reading that.
Two different people. That's why.
No matter how religious you think you are.
Hold up. 2 Corinthians 5:17. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old is past. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. He's a new creation. You've been transformed. And transformation takes process, it takes time, it takes change. But the problem is you have to be all into the transformation.
Yes.
And I was going somewhere before that, and I had something really, Jesus was speaking. Give me a second. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah.
Back to you saying, without the book, living life for Christ. It's hard. That's what we're trying to say. That's the whole point of this topic is it's not going to be easy switching your life over to Christ. But this is what I was talking about, and the Lord's brought it back. Thank you, Jesus. I want to understand this dynamic, and I'm talking to myself too because I've gotten distracted in the same way. So a lot of us believe there is a God, right? Mm-hmm. So if you believe that there's a God and that he's all-knowing and that he's all-powerful, whatever, you believe that, right? You believe that, obviously, then if you believe that, then that he created you, then he would logically know what's best for you. If he's created you, literally hardwired your brain, he knows what's best for you. Okay, we know he's best for me. He knows he's the most powerful. Okay, well, then he gives us this book. If he's God, he can make sure this book's true. He gives us a standard. He gives us the truth. Sends his son down to do miraculous things. I believe that. I believe that. But I still want to do what I want to do. And that doesn't make a lot of sense to me when I'm talking to myself. This is not a call out because I'm talking to myself too. If we believe that God is the most powerful being of all, that he truly loves and cares for us, done miracles in many people's lives, then why do we stay away from his truth, his way, and his life? And I'm starting to and this is something I've started to think about through, is like how full of myself do I have to be able to say, okay, I know you're God. I know you know what's best, but I don't really care. And that dynamic has been, it's been on my heart, my mind. And then I'm starting to think, okay, well, I'm hearing this story about Peter walking on water. He's jumping out, right? He's stepping on stuff that shouldn't be able to hold him up, but because God, because this, and it keeps recurring in my thought, this jump out in faith. It's going to be scary to start following Christ.
It is.
It's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be difficult. There's going to be times you mess up, times you'll be confused, times where you lose friends, lose people, lose experiences, sacrifices may come. It's going to be worth it, but it's going to be hard. And I want you to realize, hold on, let me keep going a second.
Go.
I want you to realize the God that you have on your side. If the God that helped David defeat Goliath, the God that led Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in a literal fiery pit and brought him out unscathed, the God that let his son rose from the dead, he came to earth as a human being and rose from the dead, the God that's resurrected people, healed people, that God is the same God you're working towards. Do you not think that God will have your back? Do you not think that God will be able to lead you through the struggles? Do you not think that God's going to be able to hold your hand while you try to learn how to defeat your flesh and defeat your sin? Do you not think he has the capability to bring you through that? Yes, that first step's going to be scary. The unknown's scary to us. No one wants to go through the unknown. The unknown is not a thing that humans like to do. That's why that first step's so hard, because you've lived your life in sin your whole life, and you don't know what living life like Christ is going to be. And that's okay. God doesn't need your understanding. You have to realize you're messing with God. You're not messing with another human. You're messing with God. He doesn't need your understanding. He doesn't need your ability, your skill. He's got that covered. The only thing that he can't do for you is say yes. That's the only thing that he can't do for you. He gave you free will to choose. He's given you the ability to choose. But the only thing he's not going to be able to do for you, he can, but he's not going to because he loves you. He didn't create you to be a robot, is say yes. God's waiting on your yes. He's not waiting on your abilities, your skills, your understanding to catch up because he's got that covered. What God needs is you to say yes to his calling, to say yes to follow him. Everything will fall into place. That's not what God's expecting you to do. God's not expecting you to plan your road, to know what's going to happen, and know how to handle things. God just needs you to say yes. He's got the rest covered. Yes, it's scary. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it is confusing, and there's so many things. You're going to lose things, gain things, so much. Just say yes. That's all God needs. The God of the universe, that's all he needs is your yes. He created the world. You don't think he can help you learn how to change your actions?
Why would you be afraid to trust him? That's the thing.
I needed that about like 6 months ago. I needed someone just to smack me in the face and say that.
But like, part of our human nature, right, is that we like to have a herd mentality, you know? We like to go with the flow. We don't really like to get ostracized. You know, we like to be like.
I don't even know what ostracized means, but that's facts.
It means like stick out. But like we like to do what everyone else is doing. You know, we don't like when people look at us different. We don't like when people judge us. But you gotta let go of the fear of that happening because you choose God. You know, like this is your salvation we're talking about. This life here, this life is temporary. This life compared to all of eternity is nothing. It's not even
grain of sand.
Not even a grain of sand on the beach. Not even. Like, we are talking about eternal salvation. You have been given the blueprint. You know the manual, or you're getting to know the manual. Like, it's all right there for you. All you have to do is just take it. That's all you got to do. You know, it don't get me wrong. It takes courage to step out and to be different. Mm-hmm. You got to be a little bit of a leader to say, hey, you know, I'm gonna spread God's word because it's scary because we live in a world of sin. We do.
And trust me, this applies to us too because I've been thinking about this recently too. Yes. When you hear conversations with teammates and friends and stuff, is like you realize this question when they start asking you about God, start asking the things you're doing, start asking about this podcast or about the devotion or you posting something on social media. And you've got to realize you're taking a step towards being different.
Yes.
And that's scary.
Yes.
You're taking a step towards getting looked at like, Because as I've, are you sure?
Yeah, you got it. Go.
As I've learned, as I've started to be more spirit-led, is that when you're not spirit-led, you look at people that are spirit-led and you're like, huh? You don't understand because you don't have the Spirit. Mm-hmm. Now, as I've started to grow in my faith and the Spirit's starting to lead me, you see things that are like, And you're like, that's just God. Like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all. God's working somehow in whatever they're doing in their life. What they may do may seem a little outward. Like, I started posting videos on TikTok. That was scary for me. You know what I mean? Like
even starting this was scary.
Right.
Like Hayden was like, hey, we should do a podcast. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I was a little nervous.
Because our first thought is, okay, what does that mean? People are going to know I'm going to do a podcast. They're going to think of me differently. They might look at me weird. And it is scary. That's really the best way to put it. And living your life for Christ is scary. It's not easy. But this applies whether what step of faith you're in, is that people may look at you a little odd.
And there are going to be people that want you to fail because you're willing to live your life for Christ.
Right, and because you have the courage to stand out.
Ooh, I heard that. I did hear that. But
like, frog went there or something. You had the courage to stand out, and they don't have the courage, and that hurts a nerve for them because they know they should be doing better, and they're not. Mm. But and no matter what step of faith you're in, what are you going to choose? This is my question. Do you choose your salvation or people looking at you weird? Whose opinion? When on the day God looks at you, and is he like, did he know you? Because he knows all about you. God's all knowing. But did you allow a personal relationship? You can know all about somebody, but do you really have a relationship with the person? There's a difference. Do you care to have a relationship with Christ, or or the humans around you? Who do you care about? That's really what it comes down to. And I have to remind myself of this all the time because sometimes I'm like, okay, Hayden, you're going a little too far here. I'm like, what? What am I telling myself? This is someone's salvation that's on the line. That because I'm too scared to go witness to them about how great God is and how good He's been in my life. Or I was scared to step out my faith in this way because I was afraid of my friends, how they look at me, or my teammates, how they look at me, because they wouldn't understand. It's not that they're bad people because they don't understand. It's because they don't have Jesus, and that's simple. That's why I acted. That's why all my mistakes came in my life is because I didn't have Jesus walk with me.
Or you turn from Jesus.
Right.
I can say the same thing too.
That's what I'm trying to say is like, that's not because we're bad people necessarily. I mean, we're all innately humanly bad. Don't get me wrong. What I'm saying, it's not because you're an evil person at heart. It's because you didn't have Jesus walking with you. Mm-hmm. And you have to make the decisions coming now. We're old enough to know. The decision's coming. What are you going to choose? Opinion of man or the Lord? Mm-hmm. If you trust the Lord's opinion, you're going to follow Him and you'll take that step. You'll have that yes for God. But if you continue to value man's opinion over that, or your emotions, your feelings over that, God's giving you the choice.
God is just so good.
But yeah, that's really the wrap up the podcast. It's been a good podcast today.
Yes.
It's hard. We know it's hard. We've gone through it and are going through it. It's a daily battle. Even when you've quote-unquote defeated and you've started giving your life to Christ, it's still a daily battle. So it is hard. It is hard. It's going to be hard. And God's not always going to give you an initial yes or an initial no. Like, it's going to be hard, patient, timing, bunch of things. But we want to encourage y'all because as two people that fought through that rough time and fighting through it currently, it's so worth it. It truly is. So we thank you guys for listening. Hope you all enjoyed, and we look forward to the next podcast.